Alright, this video is about operant conditioning. Now that we have understood classical conditioning in the previous video, let's consider operant conditioning and the work of Edward Thorndike and B.F. Skinner. These are legends in behaviorism or the learning theories, those who suggested behavioral aspect of learning theories and coined this whole idea of operant conditioning. So Thorndike's law of effect really gets to the heart of operant conditioning. It states that behavior preceding the reinforcement will increase and behavior preceding punishment or in some cases no reinforcement will decrease. So Skinner introduces the idea of learning as a result of receiving reinforcements or punishments and as a consequence of behavior. So you can see the definition of reinforcement and punishment. We know that common example for reinforcement would be giving a prize or treating a dog for a particular behavior you're trying the dog to learn, right? And for a kid, it would be a praise or giving a candy. For a punishment, it could be timeout, or it could be insulting someone. It could be a punishment too, something unpleasant, something that would make them decrease the particular behavior. So B.F. Skinner suggests in his experiment using this rat as the subject, and this is famously called the Skinner box. He uses this as a prototype experiment for suggesting and coming up with this whole idea of reinforcements and punishments. He would try to have the rat explore the box so that whenever the rat would press the lever here, there would be a pallet from which would dispense food. A food pallet would be dispensed. So the rat very quickly learned that whenever it presses the lever, it would get the food. So this was a positive reinforcement so that the behavior of pressing the lever became reinforced every time and the rat would repeat it. But Skinner does this. He would also generate shock every time the rat would press the lever. In that case, Skinner found that the rat was prone to not pressing the lever after that because it wanted to avoid something unpleasant, and then the behavior of pressing the lever would just extinguish. So this kind of helped Skinner to come up with this whole concept of reinforcement and punishment. But here, as you see in this slide, there is positive reinforcement, as how there is positive punishment and negative punishment, there's positive and negative reinforcement. Let's try to understand the difference a little bit more. So anything positive, right, means that which intends to increase anything positive is for adding something, adding in something, and negative would mean taking away something. Reinforcement, by virtue of reinforcement, it means intending to increase a particular behavior, and the virtue of punishment is to decrease the particular behavior. So that is the focus. So stimulus is, when the stimulus is added or is introduced, it is reinforcement or positive. And when it is added because you want to increase a particular response behavior, then it is positive reinforcement. So you can understand that by this example. You will see that when we give prize to a student who's taking A, and the child wants to get A all the time because the child gets the A, gets prize for every time the child gets an A. And the same thing applies to, let's say, giving a child, taking away computer from a child or cell phone these days. because the child engaged in, I don't know, sending a text message that we don't want the child to send. So in order to decrease the behavior of sending such text, if the parents decide to take off the cell phone, that would be considered a negative punishment. Let me give you this example, and let's see if you're able to get it too. This is what I was trying to say. When the stimulus is added, right, positive, and response increases, that means added means positive, response increases means reinforcement. So you can see that in this example. When the rat pressed the lever, the rat gets food. So this would be positive reinforcement. Now, when it is intended to decrease, say when every time rat would press the lever, there would be shock. That would mean, so it would be a punishment, right? Shock. And added would mean positive. So it would mean positive punishment would be rat pressing the lever receives electric shock. Now, what would be this? Rat presses the lever, shock is removed. Every time rat presses the lever, shock is removed. This is almost like every time I sit on the car and the annoying sound of the seatbelt comes on, and I just want to avoid that sound, so I put on the seatbelt, right? So it would be something very similar to that, where it's taken away. The sound is taken away in my case, but in this, the shock goes away when I press the lever. So when I want the rat to actually press the lever, in my case, to wear the seat belt, this would be a negative reinforcement, right? So, and this one would be, obviously, the one remaining would be positive, uh, as in a punishment taken away, so it would be a negative punishment. So in this case, it is the rat presses the lever, food is taken off. So what are we trying to do here? We are trying to take off. It's almost like time out or grounding, where you're trying to take away something that's pleasant, so that they learn something out of it, right? So go back to these examples, see if you understand that, and practice such things to understand the differences. Because in order to shape someone's behavior, especially a child, there's not just one way, there are different ways. Even reinforcement can be positive, negative, and punishment can be positive and negative. So understanding how to control a child who screams in a grocery store by using different ways of modifying the behavior, I think is very important. So there are different schedules of reinforcement. So research says just giving someone every time things that they need, like positive reinforcement. Every time the child screams, if I give them what they need, what they are screaming for, like a candy, that is not helpful, right? Parents, you would know that already. So there are different reinforcement schedules or patterns that we can use in order to strengthen the behavior. One of the examples I can think of is this ratio, where people who play use slot machine, because the chance of winning the game is so unpredictable that the responses the person wants to keep playing because the likelihood of winning is higher. Fixed interval would be when I know that every month, second week, I'm getting paid. That would be a reinforcement, yes, but it is paced in a way it's fixed and it's interval based, so every month. So that would be monthly salary would be example of fixed interval. So there are different schedules, and you can look at the example here. This explains, you would think about how is all this theory relevant to today? Think of the examples or scenarios of video game players or gamblers. So even if they know they are continuously losing money, they have trouble quitting. They know relationships are hurting for gamers, but still gamers want to continue playing. And why is that? You would try to understand more when you understand this operant conditioning and the philosophy mechanism behind it. This would be your practice task for this week on operant conditioning. Just practice practice this and see if your target behavior are these, what in this case would be your positive or negative reinforcement or punishment. What would you do in that case? All right.